Modern breathwork is maturing. That is going to be the topic of this episode of Chi Life. So if you've been following the vlog for a long time and possibly maybe had some interaction with me over an even longer time, you might recall at different points that I have made a vlog or two and even possibly written an article or two at different points talking about the state of breathwork in the world today. Because working with the breath has been a really valuable key part of traditional practices and cultures all over the world for thousands of years. Yoga definitely uses the breath a lot. Qigong, so interestingly, for those of you who may not know, we normally translate Qigong, so the Qi meaning energy and the Gong meaning work or skill, but that same character that's used and translated as Qi is often also translated simply as breath. And so Qigong, as a literal translation, also literally means breath work. And it's surprising to some people sometimes. You know, they'll ask me about the role that breath plays within Qigong. And sometimes it's quite surprising to them to find out that as well as breath being integrated into moving practices and things like that, that there are also many individual specific breathing exercises and breathwork practices that we do just by themselves as well, because they're so valuable for us in working with our mind, with our body, and therefore also developing our skill with our energy. So, you know, Qigong is ancient breathwork in a very literal way. So we've had these ancient breathwork practices that have carried through to varying degrees into modern day. Yoga and Qigong have carried through quite strongly, but certainly there's many practices from other cultures around the world that maybe it's more there's traces of them, but we do know people recognize the value of the breath. And then we've had this recent modern phenomena of people becoming exposed to and interested in breathwork in very much a modern context, not necessarily with that strong connection through to the traditional practices. Although, if you dig into the background of the people who've developed these modern approaches to breathwork, often they do have a connection and inspiration back to more ancient practices. But this modern approach to breathwork led to this resurgence of interest in the breath. And a lot of it started out as a very sort of singular approach focus. For a lot of people, breathwork was simply synonymous with hyperventilating and sometimes combined with breath holds. I won't get into all the details of the different methods that use hyperventilation and breath holding, but the strong methods of stimulating the energy with the breath. And because of that, they can lead to some quite strong experiences. And this caught people's attention. There's one person in particular, who I will name because you'll know who it is straight away, who really did a lot to popularize breathwork by using this type of approach to breathwork, but combining it with other, you could call them stunts. And so that was Wim Hof. And so he used a type of, hyperventilation breath work and combined it particularly with cold exposure, doing things like swimming under the ice, hiking in the snow with, just wearing shorts, and also some other sort of stunts showing physical ability. And this really caught people's attention, as well as their own experiences with some of these strong effects coming from these strong breathwork methods. And so I think overall, as I've mentioned previously when I've talked about these sorts of things, I think overall that's been a really good thing. It's helped to bring attention back to this ancient knowledge, this ancient wisdom, or at least a part of it that cultures have known about for thousands of years in different ways, but that many of us in our cultures had lost our focus and awareness of. And having this strong, exciting approach to breathwork helps people to start to rediscover this. And one of the things that I hypothesized, watching this trend emerge, was that people discovering this little part, this sort of singular approach to breath work, would lead to further curiosity, which would then lead them to start to discover how much more broadly our breath can be used and how we can work with it effectively in many different ways, including many more gentle ways. And as the years have gone by in recent times, this is what I've seen happen. And it's been really interesting to now see there's some quite prominent figures out there teaching a broader approach to breath work, including more gentle aspects of the breath that are more sustainable over time than just these very strong methods. As well as some people, some of whom I know personally, who initially were just very, very interested in this very strong hyperventilation-based breath work. Then, whether it was gradual or whether it came as a sudden epiphany, realize, this is only part of the picture, and start to discover for themselves that there are these other approaches to work with the breath and that they can use it in a much more versatile way. As well as this, from some years ago, even while this modern approach to breath work was starting to catch attention, it was still very niche. There were only really a few people doing it, even though there started to be a lot of interest in it. And so you kind of had to look pretty hard to find someone to be able to guide you through this in a knowledgeable, skilled way. But because there's been this interest over a period of time, now there has been a proliferation of people both teaching breathwork and interested in it. And that is a double-edged thing. I think it's inevitable when you get this kind of proliferation. I think overall it's a good thing, but there's often two sides to it. As it gets to be more and more, there's a lot more good quality breathwork teaching being done out there. And because there's so much of it, there's also a lot of really not very good quality breathwork being taught out there as well. And so, yeah, maybe people need to now be a little bit more discerning in finding their sources where they're going to learn from, because this is certainly something that I've noticed as I've seen different people start to teach, because it's become fashionable. It's become a trend. And some people are teaching it very much from the point of view of their own deep interest in it and what they've experienced and the benefits they've got from it, and so they have that real integrity behind their teaching. And then there are other people who are just jumping on the trend, and they don't necessarily have that deep interest themselves, and they're kind of going through the motions because it's fashionable and because it's cool, and often that doesn't lead to quite as good a quality of teaching. So this has been fascinating to observe, the way things have developed. And again, in many ways, much as I kind of hypothesized back as this, as I became aware of this emerging trend. And I think we've got a ways further to go. Again, more and more, I'm seeing people out there both learning and teaching Qigong in a more balanced way, where they're focused not just on a singular technique or approach, but they're recognizing that there are different approaches, different techniques that have different benefits and that they can apply in different ways. I think that for many, the picture is not complete yet. For most, actually, maybe for all. It's becoming more complete. There's more pieces, but not all of the dots are yet joining up for most of what I see out there into understanding fully how the breath can work and how we can use it effectively for so many different aspects of our life. So interesting to see this. I think that development will continue. I think that, again, sort of hypothesizing moving forward, I think that it's likely that breath work will move from being a fashion and a trend to starting to become more established and respectable in a way, in that there will start to be an expectation of those teaching breathwork to have a broader understanding of it and how it can apply in different ways. And I think along with this, there will probably also be further scientific investigation to validate and have a better, clearer, defined understanding of different methods of breathwork and how they work, so that we can be more precise in the way that we apply them. And this is all really, really good, really, really positive for all of us. So anyway, back to Qigong and how it relates to breathwork. As I mentioned, Qigong, literal translation of the word, breath work, as well as energy work or energy skill. Use of the breath is integrated throughout Qigong practices. Certainly within many of the moving practices, the breath plays a vital role in regulating the energy and helping to stimulate the activity of the organs, massage the nerves, and so on. It plays a really important role in regulating the function of our mind within many practices as well. And we often use separate breathing techniques as a way to prepare for deeper meditative practice. We can also use, there's a much wider range of breathing exercises and practices that we can use within Qigong that many people are aware of. From my experience talking to people, most people don't seem to be aware of just how many different breathing practices there are within Qigong that we can apply in different ways. Within the Long White Cloud Qigong teaching, we do teach different aspects of breathwork in all of the courses that we do. A really good fundamental free course that we have is called The Complete Natural Breath, and that gives you some really great foundations of simply how you can get all the parts of your body moving more freely that will allow you to breathe more easily, more freely, and that is a really great place to start. We also, again, we teach breathwork in connection with meditative practices, with moving practices. And then the course that currently, where I teach a lot of specific breathing exercises, as standalone practices, is within the Inner Fire Qigong program. And there are basically two groupings of specific breathwork practices that we do within that course. A lot of that course is focused on breathwork. I'd say it's about 50% of all of what we do within that program is just breathwork. And then even within the other practices, of course, the breath is integrated and used within it. So those two groupings are, there's a set of traditional type of practices where we're using these specific breathing exercises connected specifically to aspects of our energy flow, and we use that to activate and develop a strong, vibrant energy within us. And I haven't actually counted them myself within this series of practices. I think one of the students who went through the course counted them and said there were 19 different breathing exercises that we did within that series. And each one of them is valuable in their own right, but we put them together into a sequence that develops our energy in a really strong, healthy, vibrant way. There's also another section of the course which is much more about the foundational principles of the breath and how different aspects of the breath affect our mind and our body and our energy. And by understanding these foundational principles, how we can adapt our breath effectively so that we can use it in the best way, whether that be within our Qigong practice, whether it be for physical exercise or in other aspects of our life as well. So if you want more of a deep dive into breathwork specifically from a Qigong focus, at the moment the Inner Fire Qigong program is the place where you'll find the most in terms of what I teach. Or if you want just a little bit, but you want some foundations that are going to help you more broadly in every aspect of your life, then that free The Complete Natural Breath course, which we'll put a link in the description below, would be a great place for you to start. All right, I hope this has been interesting for some of you. I look forward to seeing you on another vlog soon.